welcome to another episode of the Armchair Crew Chief. My name is Jordan, and thank you guys for listening to this. I hope you guys like, share, follow this, and continue to listen on. If you guys want anything different in here, any information, feedback, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get started and everything. First and foremost, I want to go ahead and offer our condolences to the Pollux family, Truex, Martin Truex Jr., and so his lifelong partner, they had since split. I think it was in January, but still, when you've been with somebody 20 years, it still takes a toll. Sunday morning, Sherry Pollux had passed away. She had a long-standing battle of ovarian cancer. She was very involved in the NASCAR garage family all around. She helped with the Martin Truex Jr. Foundation, Sherry Strong OC. It was they did the catwalk that they actually had a few days ago. So it's one of those devastating blows. She was only, I think, 44, but still, it's one of those sad times. So we offer our condolences to that family and prayers to them as well. So I mean, it's a tough time to go through right now for everybody involved. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive everything into that. We had Bristol. We had playoffs, and we had Bristol. Cutoff line for the Cup Series, and we just started getting into the playoffs for Xfinity. So let's go ahead and dive into everything. Bristol race, Xfinity. Dale Earnhardt Jr. actually ran this race. He ran the Hellman's 88. Let's go ahead and dive into qualifying, and then we'll go into a little bit more. So our lineup, we'll go from 10 up. Allgaier started 10th. Jeremy Clements, Brandon Jones, Ryan Sieg, Sammy Smith, Daniel Hemrick started 5th. Chandler Smith, John Hunter Nemechek, Josh Berry, and Cole Custer had the pole. This race started off almost like a little bit different than a regular Bristol race where you just had a whole bunch of wrecks. Unfortunately, I think it was in stage 2, you had 3 of the junior motorsports cars ended up wrecking. It looked like Josh Berry had a tire go down, and he went up into Sammy Smith, and Brandon Jones was right there, right behind him as well, where he was trying to check up, and then he got rear-ended, and then it was nuts. So, I mean, as a junior motorsports owner, fan, that hurt. Moving forward with that, I mean, you still had a few wrecks here and there. Not so much as crazy as Bristol normally is, but you had some. Again, another 2 teammates, Stuart Haas, Richard Childress, not Stuart Haas. Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed ended up getting into each other. Austin Hill had a hard time this whole race. It was tough for them. It was one of those things where they just kind of he didn't have it. I mean, he was frustrated with everybody around him. It was rough. It was rough for them. So Junior Motorsports and for Richard Childress, it was a rough outing Friday night. So going into everything, we are looking at the top 5 into stage 1. You had Trevor Bayne, John Hunter Nemechek, Brandon Jones, Justin Allgaier, and Cole Custer. Parker Kligerman was running 7th. Dale Jr. 9th. I think he started 17th, and then he ended up doing really well with that. Going into the second stage, this is where we started having some of our hiccups. And then at the end of the stage, in stage 3, you had the Austin Hill debacle, we'll call it. But, I mean, he struggled, but he was running up there top for pretty good. So, top 5 ending stage 2, you had Trevor Bayne, Dale Jr., Austin Hill, Cole Custer, and Allgaier. And remember, they kept talking to Dale Jr., and he was like, man, I just want to finish this race. Top 15 would be great. I mean, he had a fast car, and I don't think he was expecting that, and it showed. I mean, not saying he's inexperienced, obviously, but he didn't seem to be wanting, or didn't seem to think he was going to be running up top. He kept saying, which I think is pretty smart when it comes to some of these non-Xfinity regulars, I don't want to mess with the playoffs. I just want to go out there and have fun and race. So that ended up happening. Unfortunately for him, I mean, he kept running. He was running really well, like I was saying. But towards the end, he ended up getting a fire around the shifter boot and in that center column where the drive shaft is and everything. He ended up catching fire there, and he pulled in, and John Hunter Nemechek's crew was there. He pulled right there. They helped him out. It's one of those things, they were talking about it before. His sponsor for this race was the fire extinguishers that put out his car. I can't remember how long ago it was, where he ended up catching fire, and he used the fire extinguisher to put it out. It was one of those, kind of stinks that happens, but hey, we got sponsorship. So going off of that, they ended up interviewing Dale Jr., and you could see his fire suit caught on fire, so it was no joke on that. Rather unfortunate. I'd like to see if he would have been able to go up there and hang up with the big guys in the Xfinity right now. I mean, he was, but if he could go up there and win. But I have to wait until next time. I think he's running Homestead. That's going to be his next race. So let's go ahead and cover up our top 5 on this. We had Chandler Smith finish 5th, Cole Custer, John Hunter 3rd, Daniel Hemrick 2nd, and Justin Allgaier ended up fighting them off and getting first place. So he ends up getting the win out here in the first race of the Xfinity playoffs to lock himself into the next stage. And not so much change on what's going on. Sam Mayer and Josh Berry, looking at the playoff bracket here, are 4 looking out. We're going to a round of 8 after the Roval, so 2 races from now. We're looking at Jeb Burton, Sam Mayer, Parker Kligerman, Josh Berry. Parker had a heck of a time this race. I mean, unfortunately, we're talking, he kept having to go back for mechanical issues. It's almost like the juju that ran off of Riley Hurst put back onto Parker Kligerman, unfortunately. So, with that being said, we'll see what happens. Parker Kligerman ended up finishing 31st. Josh Berry, Sam Mayer, 36th and 35th, respectively. Berry, 36. Again, going back to with Dale Jr., he led 47 laps, and again, it's one of those things, he wasn't expecting to lead laps or anything like that, and he ended up doing pretty good. We'll see what happens back in at Homestead whenever he runs again. But just going back into the playoffs here, I mean, this stuff's tight. Josh Berry and Parker Kligerman have some hills to climb with the next 2 races. We're going to Talladega next. We have Texas, Talladega, and Charlotte. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think Texas is one of those, gets kind of boring after the repave, like a Michigan type setup, if you're familiar with that. But again, John Hunter is 2nd, Cole Custer 3rd, Austin Hill, Chandler Smith, Daniel Hemrick, Sammy Smith, Sheldon Creed round out the top 8 with Allgaier with the win. So he's locked in. He didn't have to worry anything. That's a big relief off of him. So we'll see what happens with all that going forward and how things take an effect. I don't know. We'll see. I think it's too early to tell. We'll see what happens because I think they ran really clean at Bristol, where I was expecting a lot more wrecks. But yeah, we're looking at Texas, Charlotte, and that's their races. So they're not going to Talladega. So Texas and Charlotte is going to be the next 2 races for Xfinity, and we'll see what happens. So moving forward with the Cup Series, not so much different. We had, the almost like a one groove racetrack, and that was shown on the Xfinity race as well. So let's go ahead and dive into our lineup, and we'll go ahead and dive into our top 10, starting at Bristol. This night race is an awesome race. Some ups and downs, some question marks, head scratchers on what was going on logistically on this. But starting 10th, we had Corey LaJoie. Awesome qualifying run. They did really well, and we'll talk about that whenever we recap the race. LaJoie did really well. Bubba Wallace, another strong showing. He started 9th. Ty Gibbs, 8th. Chase Elliott, 7th. Keselowski, 6th. Truex, 5th. Michael McDowell, 4th. That car, I think I said it last week, that is going to be surprising a lot of the Stewart-Haas and some of these other Penske guys that are running Fords, and you got front row up there, hanging with these guys. So good job for front row. Good job for Michael McDowell. Let's see what happens next year, too, with extra money that they'll be getting running up here and in the playoffs and everything. I'd like to see these smaller teams go out and do anything. 23-11, even though I can't stand Bubba Wallace. I like to see these smaller teams go out. Then you had William Byron 3rd. Denny Hamlin 2nd, and Christopher Bell 1st. Christopher Bell made history by sweeping the playoff round and pole positions. That was impressive because we're not going to the same style track at any of them. And he went out there and he held his own, did really well. So going into stage 1, our top 5 for stage 1 was Tyler Reddick, William Byron, Bubba Wallace, Corey LaJoie, Christopher Bell. Then moving into stage 2, we had Carson Hocevar, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Ty Gibbs, Christopher Bell. And the two people that stood out and impressed me were Carson Hocevar. My goodness, that kid is real. Yeah, he finally took him a while to get his win in trucks, and now he's rolling. So good for him. That's impressive. He finished 11th in this race, a Bristol race in a car that he's only ran twice. I'm not including the 7 on this one because he hasn't. Different team. That was a last minute ad type thing. These are things that he knows what he's doing. So that's been very impressive. Another person that had really good. It doesn't really show in standings, but Corey LaJoie. The dude led 48 laps. He was up there. It was awesome. Awesome to watch him. Again, another small team. I think, they're out there spending money. We'll talk about that later. I hope they get better and get real good and can contend with a 23-11 in terms of small teams going forward. And then we go back and look at some of our playoff drivers here. Joey Logano, he got caught up in an accident. He finished 34th. Austin Cindric, not a playoff driver, but man, he smoked Allmendinger in the race. I mean, he got airborne. He kind of hit the corner of Allmendinger, and but fortunately for them, they all ended up finishing the race running. And going forward with more of our playoff drivers, Blaney finished 22nd. Then we had Truex finish 19th, 2 laps down. He had a good running at the beginning, and then it fell off. I don't know what happened with him. I think part of they couldn't get his car right. This is the same song and dance that's been James Small for the past few years, where he gets hot and runs, and I don't know if it's the car just clicks well, but when it doesn't click, they can't seem to figure it out. And I don't know what in the world's going on with that. It makes you question a little bit more. So going forward with that, we had Tyler Reddick finished 15th, Bubba Wallace 14th, William Byron 9th, Keselowski 8th. Then we go into our top 5. We have Ty Gibbs, Chris Buescher, Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, and Denny Hamlin. Denny got the win. He was greeted by a lot of boos. He was greeted by a cucumber wrapped in a contraceptive thrown out there. And Ty Gibbs, he led 102 laps. He did really well. I mean, this was a Toyota race pretty much. He led 102. Seabell led 187. And Denny led 142. Kyle Larson was up there. Ty Gibbs was running really well. I didn't know what was going to happen with that. Surprisingly, I thought he was going to win the race, but just strategy and everything kind of messed up around that. So I know, let's go ahead and go with our winner, and then we'll dive into the playoffs a bit later. So Denny Hamlin got met with, as probably everybody could expect, a round of boos from everybody, the fan base. And then he was soaking it in. He came out and said to everybody on the microphone, "I beat your favorite driver." NBC host that was talking to him said, "Who was that?" He said, "Everybody." So, I mean, if you like the little banter back and forth, that's good. I'm not a Denny Hamlin fan. Moving forward with that, Bubba Wallace was another one that he got some boos. He got NBC probably an SEC fine. I think it's SCC fine with dropping the S-bomb on live TV. He's sitting there with his finger over his lips, be quiet. Dude, I still don't think you have enough time to talk. Let's wait and see what happens. Anybody, you can make it out of the first round as long as you stay clean and race clean. Let's go out and win some more races. Let's go out and be a consistent top 10 finish, top 5 finisher. You've had few, but then you're still running 15. I don't know. Jury's still out on Bubba Wallace on his talent. I can't stand the dude and how he acts. So, yeah, let's see what happens. I'd be interested to see what happens if you swap out, like a Corey LaJoie or a Hocevar in a car equipment that's like that. Because you could argue that he had Tyler Reddick helping him out, or he could have been passed a few more times because Reddick was behind him, and the directive that Reddick got, because he's already won last week, was protect the 23 car at all costs, pretty much. So that's pretty much the race. I mean, to me, it wasn't that much of a Bristol race, if you know what I mean. A lot of wrecking, a lot of craziness. I mean, it really wasn't. You had, as far as I remember, the one big one that happened was the 2-car getting in the back of the 16. They threw a caution for the 19. He got loose. There was some controversy there listening to their radio. They first called the caution for debris, and then they turned around and said, and that would have given Truex the lucky dog position to get back on the lead lap. They ended up calling it for Truex. So the inconsistency there kind of frustrated, I know, the 19 crew, and listening to it and then seeing it on TV. TV didn't say any of that, so you wouldn't have known if you're watching the TV, or probably, I don't know about radio. But that's one of those things. It's like you can't call for debris and then, we're going to call it for somebody that got loose and then straighten himself back up, because he didn't wreck, he didn't touch the wall, he didn't do anything. He might have touched the wall just a little bit, maybe, but it wasn't anything crazy. I mean, he fishtailed just a little bit, and then he righted the ship. There was nobody looking like they were going to rear end him or anything like that. It was one of those bogus calls. So I don't know. NASCAR, we've talked about plenty of times this season, has had some head scratcher moves, and it's like, what in the world's going on? So moving forward, let's go ahead and get into our playoffs. Let's look at our round of 16, since this was our last race with the round of 16. We had our 3 racers that won their way in: Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick. Then you got William Byron, Christopher Bell, Brad Keselowski. Those guys pretty much pointed their way in. Then you had Chris Buescher, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain, Martin Truex Jr., and Bubba Wallace. That rounded out the top 12. And the guys that were eliminated were Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, Ricky Stenhouse, Michael McDowell. Michael McDowell had a strong running at the end. He flat out said, he's like, I don't think we had the car to win, but he was in the win to get in position, and it was close. He could have done it. I don't know. If he would have done it, then Bubba would have been out, and I don't think anybody would have losing any sleep over that. But pretty much the ones as expected, just because they haven't been running as strong, or they had a late run. Ricky Stenhouse and Michael McDowell getting out. Joey Logano got out because of a wreck. I mean, he was flirting there down below, similar to Truex. And then Kevin Harvick he was running well all season, but not strong enough to get in. So that is our round of 12. Round of 12 going in. They have 3 races: Texas, Talladega, and Charlotte Motor Course, road course, the Roval. Excuse me. So going back and looking at our points. So our points do reset, which do help our regular season champion Martin Truex Jr. And we'll go ahead and look at our bubble looking out, our 9 through 12. We have Ross Chastain, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, and Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace is sitting in 12th, 14 points below that cutoff line. Tyler Reddick sitting right above it at 3 points. Christopher Bell, 5. Kyle Busch sitting there at 8 points above. And Chris Buescher is 10 points. And then going into our leaders, we have a tie between William Byron and Martin Truex Jr. Once again, the beauty of the playoff points and being the regular season champion, all your points reset. This is pretty much for everybody unless you gain more points. So, actually, I don't even think those. I think it resets when the playoffs start. Anyway, so we have Martin Truex Jr. safe again right now, 25 points above the cut line with William Byron, but 25 points is only 25 points, and that can be lost. As we saw with Kansas, with Truex, when he hit the wall at the beginning, that can be rough. You got to be on your game. We're starting to get to some tracks that are going to be helping Truex. Kyle Larson, I think he's going to have a strong running this weekend at Texas. But we're looking at Truex. William Byron's still up there. I think you're round of 4. And I know I'm jumping all the way to championship 4, but I could see William Byron, Truex, Denny, and Kyle. And Larson, that is. I don't know if the other guys. Christopher Bell could eke in there. I don't know if Tyler Reddick, if they have enough momentum to get them in or not. That's going to be the big question mark on how all that handles. But that's what we're looking at. We got 3 races left to do something. One's a big question mark. One's a mile and a half, kind of like snooze fest. And then you got, your Roval question mark people are iffy about that. So that's one of the big things going on with that. We'll see what happens. I think Bubba's going to get knocked out this round. Keselowski, he's been running really well, but I could see him getting knocked out. Possibly Buescher. Buescher's been running a lot better than Keselowski. I think Keselowski's riding on the coattails. I could see Buescher getting in. Chastain, they just haven't had it this year. So I could see him. I could see pretty much the top 4 or bottom 4 that are in there right now getting knocked out. Maybe swapping a Kyle Busch or a Buescher. But hey, look, Truex was on the outside looking in, starting Bristol, so anything can go. Nobody is safe right now. I don't think anybody's going to be safe until like 2 laps into Charlotte. That's how crazy it's going to be. So that's how I feel about everything with that. It's going to be an interesting race. Hopefully we get some action there at Texas. I don't know. It's, as I was telling you guys, it's one of those tracks that people kind of say it gets boring because of the whole repave and how it works. I mean, they had the All-Star race there. To me, that All-Star race lacked some stuff. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens and how everything plays out with that. We are going to be starting. Let's go ahead and look at, well, instead of jumping around, let's go ahead and look in our schedule here for Texas Motor Speedway and how everything is going to play out this weekend. So, Saturday, it's going to be a Saturday and Sunday, nothing going on Friday. We have Xfinity practice and qualifying starting at 10:35 and 11:05. That will not be on TV or radio. That can be streamed on NBC Sports Plus if you have NBC Sports. And then we dump into the other crew here. We have Cup Series, 1235, 120, practice and qualifying. That's going to be on USA. It's going to be on PRN, Sirius XM. Our Xfinity race will start at 3:30. That's going to be on USA, PRN's radio. And then moving into Sunday, we have the Echo Park Automotive 400 starting at 3:30 Eastern. That will be on USA, PRN, Sirius XM. So we'll see what happens with that 3:30 start time. Something I kind of brought up talking about everything with the Bristol race is they had signs of rain coming in. I think they were talking about it Friday. They ended up moving the race an hour up Friday. I think that was a dumb move. A lot of people were kind of just, what in the world are you doing? And we say that because the rain started. They got in the cars, turn them on, turn them off, turn them on, turn them off, run around, bring them in. It took them. I mean, it was probably close to 7:10 before they started the race. So it's one of those things that it was like, why did you try to start this thing early? They were probably better off trying to start this thing later. And, listen to some of the radio. A lot of guys were like, what in the world? What the heck? This is stupid. Should have started regular, and we would have been fine. And they're right to the most part. I think there was a little bit of a rain delay right after 7:30. But other than that, NASCAR shot themselves in the foot trying to start the race at 6:30 rather than 7, and it threw, you're throwing NBC off and USA Network, which, I mean, honestly, USA, who cares? Because what are they playing? They're playing 911 or something like that. One of those silly shows that they play over and over again, which I don't understand how a TV channel can do that and be fine. But I mean, they've been doing that stuff for a while. I get at the beginning and like in the morning or whatever, but in the evening, they consistently play those. But then look at CMT; they play a ton of their shows, The Last Man Standing, and so on. So, yeah, that was a big question mark. That was a big, what in the world's going on? Why are we doing this? And it's not just coming from probably the fans, but it's coming from drivers and crews. It kind of frustrated them whenever they couldn't get this thing started. But anyway, let's go ahead and dive into our news. We had already talked about the tragic information that we heard about Sherry Pollux on Sunday morning. Then we had Danica Patrick stir the pot. She must not have situational awareness. That, or she wants everything to revolve around her. My goodness, could you be any more insensitive? Not even, a little more than 24 hours after Pollux passed, she puts out a post. Because Truex put something out. It was very dry, but if you understand Martin Truex Jr., you understand how he is. I mean, given the situation that's out there, he's very short. He doesn't talk a lot. He's a private person, very, I would say, introverted, and so on. He put out a very blanket statement, but this is not as this is par for the course for him. He's done that in the past. Whenever they broke up, he had a short statement. When he's had other statements out there, he's had a short statement. It's him. It's nothing out of the ordinary, I would say. And to not know how their relationship was. So they've been together since 2005. They were together since 2005 to January 23. Sherry was the lifeblood of Martin, pushing him to continue racing and just being there. And then just all the stuff that she did on her own with her ovarian cancer help with the Martin Truex Jr. Foundation, and how they were doing it. I don't know. But going back to what Danica said, one of the most insensitive things you'll ever hear come out of a person on a social media. She comes out and she puts her personal agenda out there against them. She comes out and says what she says, and how she said it and the way she ended her comments was insensitive. She disqualified herself by the beginning of the statement. And just overall, I'm going to see if I can find it, and I'll read it to you guys. But, I mean, everybody's attacking her. I saw something, Brett Griffin, who does Door Bumper Clear. He also spots for Colleague off and on. He even said maybe he didn't want to say anything, Truex. I believe that, honestly. I think somebody came to him like, hey, you probably want to say something just because of what happened and how severe this is. But probably how Martin is, he didn't want to say anything at all. And I don't blame him. I mean, it's a private matter, personal matter, and we're privy to see bits and pieces of these lives. It's just like if you knew somebody, an acquaintance, regular, you're privy to see parts of their lives. Yes, it's a known part of what's going on, and it's an acceptable risk with the money they make, all that kind of stuff, however you want to put it. But we're only privy to just a little bit, a snippet of what they allow us to see. So, anyway, this is what Danica posted. She posted this yesterday. Remember, Sherry passed away Sunday morning. She posted this, I think, around, we're looking at 11 o'clock in the morning. She comes out and says, and this is Danica quote, and I quote, "I avoid negativity on social media at all costs, almost. But this is the most insensitive, disconnected statement from a guy that I have never liked. And obviously for good reason. I don't care what happened between them, but this is as cold as it gets. A PR rep wrote this guaranteed. You're free from this now, Sherry." Let's dissect this a little bit. I avoid negativity on social at all costs. But then she goes into what she says. The most insensitive comment from somebody she never liked. You already don't like the guy, so you're going to see him through negative eyes anyway. You don't care what happened to them. You don't even know Sherry could have been the one. Hey, I don't want to mess up your season. This is getting bad. Let's end this now. But we don't know what's going on there. Because there's already been speculation before this all happened, like when Sherry and Martin split up, there was always a speculation that she was probably the one that did not want to get married and tie them down. Nobody questioned any of that stuff. I mean, they asked and they're like, we don't want to, and nobody pushed it, nobody prodded. Then you get into where she's like, you're free from this now, Sherry. How can you say that when you don't even really know her? Again, one of the most insensitive, uncaring, I feel like want to be part of the limelight again because it's getting off of her. She's been irrelevant. She goes on Fox. Horrible broadcasting on Fox when she's on, in my opinion. And then she comes out and says this nonsense. Disrespectful. I can't believe you said that, Danica. I know she's getting roasted on social medias all over the place for what she said. She's even getting blown up on some of her pictures that she shared for Formula One. Oh, I'm there. This long drive back. It's like, and everybody's like, oh, you're taking pictures even though your quote-unquote friend passed away. And we say quote-unquote because I don't think they were friends. None of that. You look at everybody. Jamie Little posted his heartfelt thing. She posted the pictures of her and Sherry. Danica didn't know them. Danica's just trying to stay relevant, and she stepped on too many toes. She angered a lot of people. I wasn't a fan of her. I'm really not a fan of her after that. Very insensitive. We're moving on. So back into some more racing style news. Let's get out of the dark part of everything. We have some news going forward. The Busch Light Clash is going to be returning to the LA Coliseum next year. We also have news that Bristol's going to be running 2 concrete races. Dirt is done at Bristol. Will it be run anywhere else? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, it was cool. We saw the dirt race in person, and it was awesome. But I think that's one of those that they don't go back to. Or if they do, I know I was talking, Josh, you're going to listen to this. Exhibition race, I agree with you on that. Make it an exhibition race, but then as I was telling you, you kind of get into the argument, well, that's kind of what SRX is. Especially when you have Cup guys going over, or you have, people like Haley Deegan. She went over, she runs trucks. So you kind of get in that territory. I think you let SRX do what they're doing, go do dirt, go do that stuff, and NASCAR, you stick to everything else. News also came out that NASCAR will not be going to Road America for the first time since 2009. And this is just overall. They're claiming that it's not a long-term breakup, just a short-term. I think you're going to see something like a North Wilkesboro pop in there, or they're going to go across the pond, or I say the pond. They're going to go across the border north of us to something over in Canada again. So we'll see what happens there. It's going to be interesting to see. Other big news that came out, again, I slightly touched on it, like with Corey LaJoie and Spire. They are spending the money. I think it's a smart move by BJ McLeod. Focus on your Xfinity racing and then do an open entry into Cup Series. So what I'm getting at there is BJ McLeod and the Live Fast 78 Cup team has sold their charter for next year to Spire Motorsports. Now here comes the twist. Spire doesn't have anybody to fill that car. I think they could get somebody like a Carson. Unless Carson's already signed somewhere, I could see Carson going there and running a car. But who knows? He could rerun the 77. I think Ty Dillon's not as great as I thought he was. I'll be the first to admit that. But I wanted to give him his chance because it seems like he gets a short in the stick with Austin Dillon being his brother and running for Grandpa, because I don't think Austin Dillon's that good. So moving forward, you have Spire buying the 78 charter. They are going to then turn around and lease at the Trackhouse. Trackhouse has signed Zane Smith to a multi-year contract. He will be running that car. And here comes the rumors and speculations with that. He runs it next year. And then the year after that, he takes over the 99, and Daniel Suarez goes on. I think Suarez has kind of, unfortunately, lived past his means. But then again, there's a lot of other guys that have done that too. So you have that coming out, and we'll see what happens with that. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, And then we were talking about Carson Hocevar. Hocevar is going to be running at Texas and Talladega. He's been put in there. I think he's a good fit for Cup Series. I could see him leapfrogging Xfinity because he's been holding his own in a legacy car. Legacy has been downhill this year. Well, they haven't been the great all around, but he's been doing really well. Eric Jones has been doing pretty decent too. But anyway, that going forward, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But that's our big news that's going on. That is our recap of Bristol. Also another big news, Noah Gragson got reinstated. We'll see what happens with him. I don't know. That one's too muddy to see what happens. Who knows? But anyway, that is our recap of the past week. And we will catch you guys after Texas on Tuesday. That one's going to be a little bit of different. I got to travel for business. But we will get that podcast out for you guys. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Enjoy everything. Weekend. Catch the race on Saturday for Xfinity and on Sunday. And we'll catch you guys later. Hope you have a great one.